Guys. Hey, Darren. Oh, that's okay. I mean, I know everybody can't be at every single one of these, but the good thing about it is, they're on YouTube, and so I know Dirk had watched a couple of them a little bit later. So, I like to be able to interact with everybody in here, but uh, I understand that life sometimes throws us curveballs and we got to kind of just go with the flow. So even I have to do that. So you may notice I've got some different, I don't have like just a still photo. This time I've got what's called a spooky hut or a spooky cabin behind me. I just thought that was pretty cool. I found a new site where I can get a bunch of animations and still photos and sound effects and all that good stuff. And they got a lot of horror stuff on there. A lot of stuff that I may want to use when it gets Halloween time. So I'm just really excited about all of that. Plus, there's things that I can use other places other than my live stream. So I was really excited that I ran across this when I was actually trying to find something for some other thing, actually. So I hope you like the animation, and just let me know if the animation behind me is too distracting, because what it does is it loops. Because it's just like a short little clip. So like I said, if it becomes too distracting or annoying for anybody, just let me know and we can, definitely change it back to a still photo. So you like it, Darren? You say it looks cool, and you say, yeah, you caught up with some of the streams. Cool. But let me see. I think there were like a couple of people in here. Well, now there's like, it shows there's 4 people. Well, 4 concurrent viewers, rather. So maybe some people are just not in the chat. Hey, X-Ray. You say you can't wait to discuss the gayness of Freddy 2. Well, we're going to talk about that particular element of it when we get to that one. Um, I don't want to offend any of my homosexual friends because I have some and they're very nice people. But you know, we can't talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 2 without talking about that element. I'm sure my friends would understand. So, X-Ray, you say Mark Patton's crowning performance, right? So, X-Ray, what do you think of the animated background? Darren says it looks cool. I just wanted to let everybody know if it becomes too distracting, we can definitely switch it up and go back to a still image. Um, and daggone it. Okay, guys, hold on just 1 second. I'm going to change out that light. I didn't start charging these early enough, is what happened, I think. Oh, yeah, it does kind of look like one of the Resident Evil games, doesn't it? Um, oh, I also wanted to apologize for not being on here right at 8 o'clock. Evidently, some settings got, like a couple of settings got changed um, with my OBS. I don't know if it did an update or what. Um, I think sometimes when my computer itself, when Windows updates, I think it messes things up in here. So uh, the microphone setting I discovered before I got ready to start, so I was able to fix that. But then it switched. It switched from my fiber connection to something I don't know what it was, and so it took me a couple minutes. Okay, what do I got to go into to fix this? So, uh, Darren, you said don't want to jump ahead, but Mark Patton did a great documentary all about part two. Oh, yeah, the was it like the Screen Queens or Screen Queen documentary? Is that the one that you're talking about, Darren? I thought that's what it was called. I did watch that. That was very good. Um, but anyway, before I get started with the Nightmare on Elm Street series, um, I was just going to get on here and do a quick live stream, like just a few minutes, 15 or 20 minutes, and talk about some new things I'm going to be offering on the Morbid Beauty Boutique Etsy shop. But then I thought, well, why don't I just do, something on movies too and not just get on here? Okay, you say, yeah, that's it. Okay. I thought that's what it was called, but then I wasn't sure. Um, so I decided to, because I don't think I've covered the Nightmare on Elm Street series, I thought, well, let's have a discussion on Nightmare on Elm Street series. Um, and I did want to remind everybody about some upcoming things that are going to be going on. I think Steve has already got his advertising out for tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Steve is going to return. Um, so you guys can look forward to that. Then at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be doing the Blood Hook watch along. Um, the following Saturday, barring anything, like health wise with me going on or anything else for that matter, I'm planning on doing a Rocktober Blood watch along. So mark your calendars for both of those things. I think we'll be having, I think I'm having both of my watch alongs at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So, um, but as always, you can always check my Deadites on Deck Facebook page, where I've been putting all my upcoming shows, or upcoming live streams, whatever way you want to refer to them as. And so you can check that out. I also have links in the description for the video to my Etsy shop, the Morbid Beauty Boutique, my T Public page, and also my Evil Dead Chick YouTube channel where I post all the Deadites on Deck videos. So, with all of that out of the way and all the advertising for upcoming things, I did want to talk about a few things that will be coming soon to the Morbid Beauty Boutique. And one of them is going to soon be t-shirts are going to be offered. And I was working on just one design today. I hope to be able to add additional designs as time goes on. But because Dirk had mentioned, I was hoping Dirk would be in here tonight, but he may not be able to make it. So if he doesn't, maybe he'll watch this a little later. But because Dirk had mentioned he'd like some uh, Jallo t-shirts, so he had talked about Tenebrae being one of his all-time favorites as far as Argento films. So this is the image. You probably can't see the yellow Tenebrae that good, but this is the image that will be on one of the t-shirts. Um, so uh, this is like a 9 by 9, which I've already, kind of put it on the back of one of my t-shirts just to see how it looked. And I had another image, but it had the white fabric from the girl's shirt from Tenebrae on there. And Steve had a great suggestion. His suggestion was, why don't you take all the white off of there and make it look like her face is coming through the shirt? And I was like, that is an awesome idea. That's sometimes, why it's great to bounce ideas off somebody else, because they may come up with something that you hadn't even thought of. And in the case of this image, I hadn't thought of that. Yes, Darren, I think Dirk said that he would love to have this particular image on a white shirt. But I'm hoping to offer other colors and different sizes. But these are going to be made to order. So I'm not going to have, because I don't want to make a bunch of shirts and then not sell all of them. And then I've got all these Tenebrae shirts or whatever other images I come up with. Um, Darren, you say you got the Blood Hook Blu-ray, so it'll be a first-time watch for me. Don't worry about spoilers, though, as it doesn't bother me. Okay. With some of those movies, it doesn't bother me either if people give spoilers. Um, but, yeah, I think this will look really good on a white shirt. And I'm glad that I went with another image, because the first one I picked didn't. Steve was right. It didn't really look good. So I found this one where her chin is more rounded instead of like being like a line, a straight line. And then of course I put Tenebrae underneath there. Um, so that's one thing that I'm going to be offering. The other thing, and keep in mind, these next two things I'm showing are just prototypes. You're not going to get, if you order one of these, you're not going to get it with like scotch tape over the image. These are just paper images that I stuck temporarily on the tumblers and the mugs, to just give you kind of an idea what it will look like. But I'm actually going to use the water slide decals, or the water slide decal paper, to actually make the images. These again will be made to order, because I don't want to have a bunch of these sitting around and they don't get sold. Um, so we're going to have tumblers. And this has, an example of the Tenebrae um, image on it, the same one that I made for the t-shirts. Also, you can also get a mug, a coffee mug or cocoa mug or tea mug, whatever you want to call it, with the image from Tenebrae on there as well. So, and you can kind of see what this image looks like on a white background with these mugs. So, look forward to those things. I'm not sure what the pricing is going to be on these. I'm thinking the shirts maybe 10 or 12 bucks to start with until I get maybe better at doing the images. But that's what's on the horizon as far as my Morbid Beauty boutique shop. So you like those, Darren? Like I said, I'm thinking ten to $12 on the shirts. Um, but I haven't decided on pricing for the tumblers and the ceramic mugs. So, but again, you guys can look forward to all of that coming soon. And I'm going to try to come up with some other images. But because Dirk had mentioned Tenebrae, I thought, well, why don't I just start with that image and we'll see what happens. So, with all the housekeeping stuff out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get started with the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I want to be kind of thorough with this, but I also don't want to go on all night with it because, through the day, of course, I was feeling pretty decent. I did laundry and all that good stuff. But then, as usual, in the evening hours, I start feeling kind of cruddy again. So, I don't want to go on too long for your guys' sake and for mine as well. But I did want to do something other than just getting on here for 15 or 20 minutes and showing you the stuff for the Etsy shop and then saying, sayonara, I'm gone for the night. So, of course, we're going to start with the original Nightmare on Elm Street, in my opinion, the Wes Craven classic. Starring John Saxon, Heather Langenkamp, Ronnie Blakely, and introducing Johnny Depp. So, if anybody ever wants an introduction to Johnny Depp, or they ask you what Johnny Depp's first movie was, you could pull out this sucker and be an excuse to show them a horror film, because you can say, "Hey, it was Johnny Depp's introduction to movies." So. The movie guide refers to this as one of the most intelligent and terrifying horror movies of the 1980s. And I was, honestly a little bit late um, watching or discovering, I guess, A Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it was much later than 1984 whenever I actually saw it. It was probably, I'm almost sure it was in the days after we got our first VCR. My family got our first VCR. And so it happened to be one of those I rented. And then I started seeing articles showing up on the Nightmare on Elm Street movies and Robert Englund and all that. And I was like, I don't even think it was Fangoria. I think it was some other magazine that I actually saw an article for the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And it was talking about how Wes Craven got this movie on its feet, and about Robert Englund playing Freddy. And I actually got to see what the young Robert Englund looked like at that time. And I was just, it just blew me away. But you know what, guys? I think, and this is going to gross people out, I think Brandon left me little presents again. So hold on. Let me put the Evil Dead background up for you guys, and I'll be back as soon as I can. So sorry, guys. Steve's awake. I thought he would have watched them a little bit, but he's in there watching the director's cut of Nightbreed on Shudder when it was on Joe Bob's show. Um, let's see. X-Ray, you said want to skip Freddy's Nightmares, the remake, and Freddy versus Jason. I probably will. Even though I like Freddy's Nightmares, but perhaps I'll do a live stream just on Freddy's Nightmares at some point. Darren, you said, I've said it before, the original film is the best in the series, but I prefer part two. I burnt myself out on the original, watched it to death. Yeah, and I'm sure that's happened to a lot of fans, Darren, that just, I have to give myself a time in between watchings because, as I've said before, I know when I've watched any movie, not just horror movies, but any movie too much, when I put the movie in and I start zoning out. I'm sorry. I think that's Reggie wanting to come in. So sorry, guys. Reg, get in here. But yeah, I'll start zoning out and looking at my phone, looking at browsing Amazon or whatever. And that's my indicator that, oh, yeah, Dana, you've watched this movie way too much here in a short length of time. Maybe it's time to take a break from it for a while. So that's how I gauge whether or not I've seen a particular movie too many times in too short of a span of time. Hey, Brandon. Let's see. Darren, you say, I've never really rated Freddy above Michael Myers or Jason. Probably Leatherface as well, thinking about it. Yeah, I don't think I have either. Um, Brandon, you say this is that Elm Street's your fave series, so oh, that's great. Um, you know what I really wish I could have got for a background or even an animated background is something that looked like a boiler room. Um, but I spent so much time back here looking. I told Steve there was so much information or so many little goodies that I found on this one site that I could be looking at it for days and not get through all of it. Uh, but that would have been cool. But I like this. I like this little. It's called a spooky hut. I think it kind of looks like a cabin too. So, and there went the light again. So if y'all can just bear with me while I try to charge up. I mean, they're just literally lasting no time. So I do apologize. My part of my image is going to be a little bit fuzzy until one of those lights gets charged up. But I don't want to waste any more time trying to switch them out. So y'all just please bear with me for a little bit. Um, Darren, you say I did see the original on the big screen 3 years ago at Halloween, so maybe could be time to see it soon. Yeah. Um, but like I said, I always have to give myself a space of time. The Nightmare on Elm Street movies, the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens, all of those big franchises are ones that I love them, but I really have to give myself time in between watches. Hey, Texas. Um, so let me, I'm sure everybody knows the plot to A Nightmare on Elm Street, but I'm just going to read a little bit of the plot here on the back of this Blu ray. So, 1 2, Freddy's coming for you, and here he is. Phantom Fiend Freddy Krueger in all his razor fingered infamy. Wes Craven directs this trend setting first in the slash hit series. The premise is simple. Freddy, played by Robert Englund, homicidally haunts the sleep of Elm Street teens. The results are terrifying and mind blowingly innovative. There's another film debut too, Johnny Depp. He plays the ready steady of the haughty McSmarty, Heather Langenkamp, who figures a clever way to flambe the fiend. But ever say die, Freddy will be 3, 4, back for more, even returning to the screen in a killer 2010 remake of this diabolical original, Sweet Dreams. And we're not going to talk about that remake because I would have absolutely nothing good to say about that remake. So, where do I start with this? I thought that, I personally thought that the premise for this movie, and when Wes Craven talked about how he came up with the idea for this movie, it was so fascinating to me, morbidly fascinating, because he tells the story of where the idea for Nightmare on Elm Street came from. And where it came from were some refugees that left war torn areas and came to the United States. Um, the adults fared better than their children. So these teenage, I think boys primarily, started dying in their sleep. And there was a series of LA Times, I think it was the LA Times articles, and Wes Craven read those articles and was just kind of, taken in by the story. And these real teenagers were actually doing some of the things that are shown in the Nightmare on Elm Street, hiding coffee pots in their room, taking uppers to stay awake, caffeine pills, drinking a bunch of soda, just doing anything to stay awake because they were having such horrifying nightmares. And then when one of the sets of parents finally, I think they got some sleeping pills and they hid them in, either food or drink or whatever. And they were just so relieved when their son finally fell asleep because he had repeatedly been staying up. And they were worried about, his physical and his mental health. So they were just so relieved that their son was finally asleep. So they go to sleep only to wake up in the middle of the night or the middle of the morning and hear their son thrashing around, screaming, yelling, having extreme night terrors. And by the time they get to him, he's dead. I would imagine of a heart attack from a dream. Whatever this dream was, it was so terrifying. So I'm sure Wes Craven sat around thinking, what could be so terrifying that somebody would die in their sleep, especially a young person? So he came up with the idea for Freddy Krueger, and Freddy Krueger is partially based on a man, a vagrant, I guess, that Wes Craven remembered seeing creeping around his house when he was a young boy. And this guy was kind of far away from his house, and then all of a sudden he was at the window staring at young Wes Craven like this, and so that scared the life out of young Wes Craven at that time. So there were primarily two different sets or two different incidents that happened. One was the LA Times article that he read when he was an adult. The other happened to him when he was a child, when the vagrant showed up creeping around his house. Okay, so that's primarily who Freddy Krueger was based on. Let's see. Brandon, you say, my dad introduced me to Elm Street because when I was a kid, I kept making him watch the Friday the 13th movies. He really liked the supernatural elements of the series and reoccurring characters. Darren, you say, I will probably surprise you, but I don't mind the remake. As a slasher film, I can get some enjoyment from it. No, I mean, I am glad that some people are able to get some enjoyment out of that. I'm not going to talk at length about it, but since you brought that up, I will say that my main problem with it was it seemed almost like they were trying too hard. And in my eyes, it seemed to backfire on them. And I didn't really feel like they had the right actors in the right roles. And some of the actors, in my opinion, weren't that good at all. The other problem I had, of course, was having Jackie Earle Haley play Freddy Krueger. I could see Jackie Earle Haley in a lot of roles, but not as Freddy Krueger. And I realized they were trying to go in a little bit, slightly different direction. I get that. But I don't know. I went in with an open mind. I saw this at a theater, and I just walked out. I stayed for the duration of the movie, but I walked out of that movie when it ended, just shaking my head. as I've done with some other remakes. Um, yes, John, we are talking Freddy tonight. Darren, you say, if you include Last House on Hills Have Eyes, this and Scream, Craven made a classic for 3 decades in a row. Exactly. Um, Texas, you say, I like the remake myself. Huge fan of Jackie Earl Haley. I'm a huge fan of Jackie Earl Haley as well, but I don't think he was the right person to play Freddy Krueger. And I'm not saying they had to use Robert Englund again. Um, I'm just saying that I just Jackie Earl Haley's been great in a lot of movies. He just wasn't, in my opinion, great as Freddy Krueger. Yeah, and I agree with you, Darren, that you can never replace Robert Englund. Just like in my eyes, you can't. Even though several other guys played Jason before Kane Hodder, Kane Hodder is pretty much the only one that stuck with it until they pulled the rug out from under him. So in my eyes, you can't. Nobody can replace Kane Hodder. Um, see, Texas, you say you want to see a real fucked up movie with him. Watch Little Children. I hate that movie. I don't think I've seen that one. I'll have to try it out and see if I hate it too. X-Ray, you say, shit, sounds like my experience with the Texas Chainsaw remake. I took out the VHS after 20 minutes because it sucked dick. Brandon, you say the remake was poop, in my opinion. I was not a fan. John, you say, I wonder if when they made Nightmare on Elm Street that Wes Craven would guess 30 plus years later that cosplayer Instagram girls would use it for attention, lol. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. X-Ray, you say, remember when Jackie Earl Haley was a teen heartthrob in the 70s? I mean, I don't remember it when it went on in the 70s, but yes, that time period is very vivid to me because of things like the Bad News Bears, Breaking Training, and stuff like that. John, you say, sorry, I noticed that a lot lately. They try hard. The try hard sexy posts on Instagram. I even saw Freddy one today. Wow. Brandon, you say, if I was to recast Freddy, I would pick William Dafoe. That would be an interesting choice. X-Ray, you say, Willem Dafoe doesn't even need the makeup. That nigga's face is terrifying already. He has a very unusual face, I will say that. X-Ray, you say, Dana owns all the Tiger Beat issues of Jackie Earl Haley. Steve tried to burn them. You know, honestly, I haven't even laid my eyes on a Tiger Beat magazine in years. Uh, but I'm not going to lie. There was a certain period of time in my youth when I had Tiger Beat posters up on my wall. That was prior to my horror stuff. John, you say it'd be hard to recast Freddy now. You need an unknown. Right. And see, Robert Englund was pretty much an unknown at that time. Uh, but I can't. Nightmare on Elm Street is another one of those, in my opinion, almost perfect films. Um, yeah, it has, there's certain flaws in it, but it is nearly perfect for me. Wes Craven did an awesome job on this, and you can even see in some of his other films things, things that movies that he made, like Deadly Blessing, that came after A Nightmare on Elm Street. You can see little hints of A Nightmare on Elm Street in Deadly Blessing. The bathtub scene is similar to the Heather Langenkamp bathtub scene, only you don't have Freddy's hand coming up. You have snakes being in the bathroom. Somebody's put snakes in there. The booby trap setups are very reminiscent of A Nightmare on Elm Street. John, you said the guy who played it was good, but that would be a bit of a retread. Yeah. Texas, you say you could cast Robert Downey Jr. as Jason. Who would really know he's wearing that damn mask? Yeah, but I think, as I said, Kane Hodder is Jason for me. And I think that that's mainly because Kane Hodder added something different to the Jason character. Jason doesn't have much in the way of personality like Freddy does. Um, so I don't really want to say that the actor that plays Freddy has to try hard because that sounds like I'm being detrimental towards Kane Hodder or any of the other guys that play Jason for that matter. Um, they still have to do something even though they're behind the mask. Just like Michael Myers, they have to do something to make this character stand out. But a character like Freddy, who's expected to speak and more interact with the characters before he kills them, where Jason just shows up and kills their ass. Michael Myers just shows up and kills their ass. He doesn't have a conversation with them. He doesn't, it's just mainly heavy breathing and how the particular actor or stuntman chooses to make movements and make that character their own. Hey, Menelect. Brandon, you say take Willem Dafoe and use Albert Fish as inspiration. I think it would work. Or the German film about a child killer. Darren, you say, I really think England could do it one more time, and Hodder as well. Both are in decent shape for their age. Exactly. Menelect, you say, Michael, Jason gets straight to business. Yeah, Freddy's kind of like, if you've ever seen a cat play with its prey before it kills it, that's what Freddy does. He plays with his prey and then he kills them. So he just kind of teases them, shows them his knives, his finger knives. As the series went on, he got more comedic with his lines. Unfortunately, he became less dark, and perhaps that is the avenue that they wanted, or the road they wanted to take with the character. But Freddy was definitely his darkest in the first two films. And he was pretty daggone dark in the third one. But like I said, as they progressively went on, I guess from 4 on, Freddy slowly started to get more comedic and he would throw out one-liners and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to put down Robert Englund in any way. I'm sure that he was being coached in a lot of ways by whoever was making the movie or whoever, whoever at New Line, probably Bob Shea, that was pulling the strings, so to speak, probably had a lot of input on different things, especially later on down the road. John, you say, I love A New Nightmare. I know it's not the best movie, but it's fun as a 1-2 combo with part 1. I agree, John. I have always loved A New Nightmare. Texas, you say 6 blows. Well, there are for me, there are weak ones and there's the stronger ones too. John, you say the only one you just hate is the remake. X-Ray, you say Freddy became too beloved. That's when the softening began. X-Ray, you say when Freddy started popping up in Nintendo games and as toys, he stopped being scary. Yeah, exactly. Brandon, you said not to sound gross, but Freddy's a predator like Gacy or Dahmer and Ramirez. Maybe make him more predatory in his kills if they reboot it again. Yeah, I could see that. I don't think you're sounding gross. I think that's the what Freddy started out as, and as you guys said, the softening started somewhere along the way. Uh, oh, we've got Fred Krueger in here. He says Trump would make a good Fred Krueger. Oh, now that's scary. John, you say New Nightmare is kind of like H2O is to Halloween 1 and 2. Exactly. Um, so I think I think the original Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely one that I will always go back to. Um, this could have very well, and it probably was what Wes Craven originally envisioned for the he. I don't think he thought this was going to be a franchise. I think really at the beginning he thought it was going to be a one off and that was going to be it. And I think this is another movie, even though I like several of them in the series, if we had never had a series, if this had just been a one off, I think I would have been satisfied with it because the movie works so well. Um, you have you just have all the right people in all the right roles, and that does not happen very often. It to me it is very rare, and not just horror films, but in a lot of different films of different genres. But this one really, really has a lot of strengths to it. Whereas some of the others in the series, there are some good ones, some not so good. But I don't think they're nearly as strong as the first Nightmare on Elm Street. It's Freddy at his scariest, it's Freddy at his most sadistic, um, and there's no humor. There's no humor in Freddy in this, and you can argue up and down, sideways, backwards, whatever with me on this, and I would still tell you there is no humor to this Freddy Krueger in the original. Let's see. John, you say, true, Brandon, he's very vicious. Darren, you say, don't you think the actress who played the mother was bad? Um, well, I mean, kind of, Darren, but I think it worked. Um, and it didn't make her look like as weak a character because here's why I feel that way. Because her character was an alcoholic. And I think having a less than perfect actress play that, and this was Ronnie Blakely, by the way. I've seen Ronnie Blakely in other things, and you're right that she's not a really strong actress. But again, I thought this worked in this movie because she's an alcoholic in the movie, and I think that her weak the weak parts of her acting worked for her because of this role. It might not have worked for her if she had been playing a straight laced businesswoman. But because she was, a little bit of a lush, I think the weakness in her character, I think that just helped with the characterization. Yeah, Ronnie Blakely, you definitely wouldn't call her a horror actress. Texas, you say she was probably drunk in it, which helped. No, it's possible. I don't know for sure. John, you say Freddy's voice in 1 and 2 was dark and scary and even monstrous. Later on, it turned into comedy and silliness. They really mellowed him. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Uh, X-Ray, you say Ronnie Blakely was good in Nashville, but she was playing a country singer like she is in real life. Um, John, you say especially by Freddy's Dead. Yes. And I'll tell you the main reason why I remember Freddy's Dead so vividly, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to it. But it was because that was the first, even partially, 3D movie that I ever saw at the theater, at least, anyway. X-Ray, you say Ronnie Blakely and John Saxon look too Italian and Native Americanish to be Heather Langenkamp's parents. Yeah, I guess if we think too much about it, then that is certainly true. But I think sometimes we, or a lot of times, we suspend disbelief when we're watching these films. And it's only later, like we're having this discussion now, that we think about how ridiculous some of these pairings are. Um, Brandon, you say the mom worked. In my opinion, I grew up with an alcoholic dad. He tried, but I remember seeing him taking beer out of the closet like Nancy did in the first film, and I can relate to Nancy tucking her mom in. Yeah, and I think, I'm sorry, Brandon, that you went through that, but um, my mom also had an alcoholic father. He quit drinking after, I think, sometime after I was born, which was really great. But it was really tough for my mom growing up, and when my mom started dating my dad, uh, she didn't even want to bring him by the house because her her dad invariably was going to end up getting drunk, passing out, or doing something. There was one year around Christmas time that he passed out. He fell down, passed out underneath the Christmas tree. And I didn't even know this about my granddaddy. And by the time I got old enough to know anything, he had long since quit drinking. Um, my dad also had two brothers that were alcoholics. One who ended up passing away due to, not due to the alcohol doing anything to him physically, but because he ended up, and I know I'm getting a little personal, I'm not trying to bum anybody out, but his wife had left him and he went back to drinking really heavily. And so one night he got really, really drunk, went into town, and started repeatedly slamming his vehicle into somebody's garage door. So then the more he did it, the vehicle ended up catching on fire. So um, he basically ended up dying of smoke inhalation, essentially. And that's how we lost my Uncle Johnny. So I understand the pain and some cases torment and stuff that can go along with alcoholism. Um, my granddaddy also, and so sorry guys to get so personal, but when I think about alcoholism, I think about all these things that have unfortunately happened to my family and probably happened to many other families as well. But when my granddaddy was in his heavy drinking days, and he would basically drink his whole paycheck away. He would he'd spend payday in the bars, and my granny tried a few times to go, and she thought if she sat with him in the bars and maybe he would come home with her, but that never worked. And he, in his heavy drinking days, he did mess around uh, with other women and ended up having two children, not with my granny. So my mom and her brother and sisters have a brother and a sister that they don't even know. They wouldn't know them if they met them. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. So, X-ray, you say also Ohio wishes it had canals and palm trees. Exactly. X-ray, you say, damn, sorry to hear. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, the stuff about my granddaddy messing around on my granny, I didn't even know about until I was much older. Unfortunately, my Uncle Johnny getting killed happened when I was 13. So I do remember that pretty vividly. I remember the cops coming and having to tell my dad what happened to his brother. Us going to my grand and papa's, and it was just, you know, I can still remember it like it was yesterday. X-ray, you say, don't worry, most families have some crazy shit somewhere down the line. Yeah, most of them do, if not all. Um, just some people would rather not talk about it, but I just I spill my guts usually. I'm not too shy about telling things. Uh, hey TJ, you say hi Dana and all. I thought it was Saturday for a sec. Exactly. Well, I was telling everybody earlier that at first I was just going to show the things that I was going to be putting on my Morbid Beauty Boutique Etsy shop. And then I thought, well, why don't I just cover something I don't think I've covered? And the Nightmare on Elm Street series was one of those things. So I just decided to do that tonight. Uh, like you say, Freddy went from scary to goofy to an extent. Yep, exactly. So, again, I don't think I need to keep going on and on, like plot wise, for a Nightmare on Elm Street. You guys can still continue to comment on any of these, even after I move on to the next one. I did want to say that this is just the New Line Cinema release. I'm eagerly awaiting 4Ks of these suckers to come out. Um, with Dolby Atmos sound, I hope, at least on this first one. But I was going to tell you the special features that's on this actual release in case you were thinking about picking it up and didn't have it yet. So you got Ready Freddy Focus Points, see alternative takes and learn filmmaking secrets behind the nightmare by jumping to video highlights while watching the movie. 2 commentaries, one with director Wes Craven and co-stars Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon and cinematographer Jacques Haitkin. I really like that one. There's also one with Wes Craven and co-stars Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp, and Ronnie Blakely, which is also good. Also, producer Robert Shea and co-producer Sarah Risher. Alternate endings, 3 featurettes, The House That Freddy Built, The Legacy of New Line Horror. And I just wanted to bring up again the fact that New Line always embraced Freddy. And they weren't shy about saying The House That Freddy Built. The Legacy of New Line Horror. It wasn't the only horror for New Line Cinema, but I think it's the one that put them on the map, really. Whereas Paramount has always treated the Friday the 13th series like the bastard stepchild. So I just don't really understand that, but whatever. I'm sure that the Friday the 13th series made Paramount a lot of money. So you also get Never Sleep Again, The Making of a Nightmare on Elm Street, and Night Terrors, The Origins of Wes Craven's Nightmares, and you get an interactive trivia track. TJ, you say Heather was very honest on that commentary. A lot of fun anecdotes. Exactly, yes. Like she thought at one point she was wearing Johnny Depp's jeans, LOL. Yeah, when you said that, before I even read the rest of that, that's what I was thinking of. X-Ray, you say, I always liked the old New Line Cinema logo in front of the first Freddy movie. It was more futuristic. Yeah. Um, so, like I said, you guys feel free to go on about, even a Nightmare on Elm Street, even when I get further into this series, you can do that. Because I'm double checking the Chaz I'm going through. But we're going to cover a lot of people's favorites next. Actually, this has 2 and 3 on it. But we're going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which is now referred to the gay Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I'll be totally honest with you guys. The very first time, and I don't know how I missed it. Maybe I was too young. I don't know how I missed it really, but this movie is full of gay innuendos all over the place. And keep in mind, I'm not making fun of gay people. Some of my best friends are homosexual. So I would never, ever make fun of that lifestyle. Never. I'm just saying, it's clearly, I don't care what the director says or the writer or anything like that. I don't care what they say. It was pretty blatantly gay. From Mark Patton doing his little cringy, for straight guys, it's a cringy dance. And you're looking at it going, that's gay. To several other quips that are made, like it all ties in with Freddy. But for instance, when Jesse is with his girl and they're about to do it, I guess, and they're on the cabana, and like he's kissing her and he's kissing near her breasts and all that stuff, and Freddy's tongue ends up coming out of his mouth, and he goes like this, and he leaves and he goes to Grady's house. But if you take the Freddy thing out of the equation there, Jesse can't make it with Lisa. So he ends up going to Grady's house and wants to sleep over at Grady's house. Is that or is that not homosexual innuendo? It is, in my opinion. Brandon, you say, I love number 2. As a bi man, I can relate to the confusion Jesse feels. Also, Rip Gulager, he was funny as a dad. Yes. X-Ray, you say, I always thought the female lead in this was Meryl Streep as a kid. Well, she kind of does remind you of Meryl Streep, come to think of it. X-Ray, you say, the movie ain't gay. Who doesn't dance like that at home alone? I guess that's one way to look at it, X-Ray. Darren, you say, I don't think I picked up on it being gay themed on first watch. No, I just think in my case I was just too young to... That wouldn't even entered my mind at that time. X-Ray, you say it was a supernatural body horror queer mashup. The 80s weren't ready for it. Obviously not. TJ, you say the gym shower scene says everything, LOL. Although the teacher was a huge perv, that should have been in jail, exactly. But, the whole scene where the S&M bar, and I'm not saying all homosexual men are into S&M, I'm not saying that. But there was, of course, a homosexual element to that, attached to that, because... I'm sure there's some homosexual men, just like straight men, that like a little kink in their sexual activity. So, I'm sure there's some straight guys that are into S&M. It's not just homosexuals. X-Ray, you say, I wish Fu Manchu's was a real cereal. I do too. I do too, and I wish you got those cool little fingers in there. X-Ray said the movie's funniest moment is when he says, "Help yourself, bitch," before bitch slapping him into oblivion. Exactly. X-Ray, you say the movie is very creepy, very dark, and grim atmosphere. Yes, very, very dark. Yes, you picked up on that too, TJ. Bob Shay as the bartender looked crazy out of place, lol. Yeah, I thought Bob Shay looked a little uncomfortable in that role. Um, and I think they said he had to go to somewhere like the Lion's Den or whatever to get that get up he has on in that. X-Ray, you say the scores of the first few movies are very underrated. Exactly. They're they're subtle, but they are so creepy. Um, so um, now, of course, we all see all the homosexual elements in it because they, for one thing, they've been pointed out 50 gazillion times. Um, that we're like, huh, how did I miss that? But perhaps another reason was we were so into the Freddy story that we weren't really thinking about why why won't Jesse confide in his girlfriend about what's going on before just running to Grady's house and there's that whole line where Grady says well, Jesse says there's something that's trying to get into my body, and Grady's like, yeah, she's waiting for you on the cabana, and you're wanting to sleep with me. So now that we look at it in hindsight, it's like, yeah, that's very gay. Um, and Jesse getting his pants pulled down, and even though a girl says nice ass, when that happens. There's a whole homoerotic feel to that, getting your pants pulled down and you've got a jock strap on in front of other guys. Um, Seeing in the dream, seeing the gym teacher get whipped with towels until he's bloody and he's naked and all that stuff. And I mean, there's just so much in this movie that we could talk about. Um, but again, if it's possible, I think almost that Freddy looks darker and more sadistic in this movie than he did the original one, if that's possible. But I just feel like he's edging more towards that dark, sadistic side. And then we're going to have one more movie where he's pretty dark. Then it's going to start sliding into comedic territory. Um, Brandon, you say Freddie's makeup was the best in this. Yeah, it's very, very, very dark. Not just like the makeup to make him look like a burn victim. It's, there's something else underneath there that is very, very unsettling. Actually, so the score for this particular movie has been recycled in a lot of Hong Kong horror films. Oh, I would not doubt it. I think I've even heard it in some that Steve has watched along the way. Actually, you said we were so mesmerized by the movie we didn't notice the gayness, and I think you're right. I make a lot of jokes and stuff about why we were able to not see it. But I do think that you're correct on that, X-Ray. X-Ray, you say Grady was every gay man's fantasy in the 80s. Tall, dark, and looked Puerto Ricanish. TJ, you say there's some nice suspense and the acting was pretty good. Great effects. Though the continuity is weird since Freddy is in the real world and then all of a sudden back in dreams in part 3. Yes. Yeah, they took him out of the nightmare world quite a bit in this one. And there may have been I haven't really heard any fans say they hated this one or that they disliked it. Um, but I believe I have heard some fans, I'm talking like hardcore fans, say that they didn't really understand why Freddy did that or how he was able to do it. But I think part of it was being able to somehow cross that line and being able to possess Jesse's body. That was what enabled him to be able to jump in and out of nightmares. Um, so um, I think it's unique. I think it actually added something to the series. And I don't really have a problem with it, but some people might. But logic is not a strong point in horror films. And so I am always willing to let a few things go. As long as not blatantly stupid, I'll just roll with it. Brandon, you say the pet bird. Yeah, I I'm very sensitive to any animal deaths, whether they're fake or not. I've always said you can kill as many people off in a horror movie as you want to, but when animals are involved, especially dogs and cats, especially dogs, but any other pets, I'm sensitive to as well. So I always, even though I knew it was fake, I always hated seeing that poor bird explode and seeing it kill the other one before it goes crazy and explodes. X-Ray say, I don't think the lore was established until the third film, really. Yeah, I think, they were still getting their feet wet with the second one, with establishing the backstory with Freddy and what he was able to do. So, yeah, they very well could play around with logic a little bit. I mean, Freddy's supernatural anyway. He can jump in and out of dreams. He can do whatever the hell he wants. Because a lot of the stuff that happens is in the dream world. So, yeah, let me talk a little. We pretty much have talked about the plot, but I just want to give a little synopsis here. So, kids on Elm Street think they've seen the last of Freddy Krueger. Well, night night, hotties. The Dream Fiend is back with a vengeance in the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. His plan to possess the mind and body of the new kid on the block so he can wreak havoc in the real world. So, also, I'm noticing upon reading these little plot synopses on these Blu-rays, I don't know who in the hell they had write these things, but I guess they were trying to be hip or something. But it's kind of funny reading these. Don't you think that something sounds a little off, like somebody was trying too hard with these by calling us all hotties and all that stuff? Um, so this one and the third one are the last ones that I have like separate Blu-rays for. And then I'm going to go to this set, which is not a really, I'll be honest, it's not a really great set, but it was cheap at one time, and so it was a way to get the rest of them on Blu-ray. I do have the original DVD box set. It's back in the back room where my iguana and my snake and my rats and guinea pigs are. So I didn't get it out, but I got my Blu-rays out. So I really think this is a good film. I think Mark Patton did an excellent job playing Jesse. Um, and I think he deserves all the respect we can give him for playing a role that I'm sure that even before he came out as a gay actor, that he took a lot of flack for this. And I have great respect for him being able to hold up under, there's probably intense amounts of pressure. Um, because I'm sure there were many times over the years where he just, before he actually announced that he was gay, that he wanted to say, look, you guys are just dancing around this stuff all day long. Why can't you, I'm gay. Um, we can say I was bisexual. We can say whatever in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. But don't try to hide from the fact that there's a gay element in here. And I think that's what he was trying to tell. I think that's what he was trying to get. Oh shoot, was it David Chaskin? I think that he really put under the. He was really under the microscope, and Mark Patton pretty much really let him have it. He was, why can't you just admit? Now, I don't know how much Jack Shoulder knew or didn't know about this. Jack Shoulder is a great director. He also did Alone in the Dark, which I met Jack Shoulder several years back and had him sign some artwork from Alone in the Dark, which I think is another awesome film that New Line put out. Um, so I think Jack Shoulder was just making a movie, but David Chaskin, he was very. If you watch that Scream Queen documentary, I felt like he was very evasive. Um, and all Mark Patton wanted was an apology from him. And he finally gave Mark Patton that apology, but I think that Mark Patton accepted it as such. But I just don't think David Chaskin's heart was fully in it. I think he should have gave Mark Patton a better apology. I think it was a little weak. Um, Darren, he said Felser's working on the Ultra 4K box set. But you can't say anything to him about it, can you? Brandon, you say, I have a lot of respect for Mark, but he needs to let it go. He seems bitter, in my opinion. I I think he seemed bitter at first, at least on that documentary, but that was until David uh, Chaskin actually apologized for it. Um, yes, Darren. Mark Patton did say that it pretty much ruined his career. Um, TJ, you say, by the way, one of the two girls with Jesse at the beginning, Joanne Willett on the bus, was in the sitcom Just the 10 of Us with Heather Langenkamp. Debbie Brooke Thies in part 4 was also on that sitcom. Exactly right. I remember watching Just the 10 of Us. I loved that. I loved that show. I wish we still had sitcoms like that, but unfortunately not. So I'm gonna move on. Y'all can keep talking about the first one, the second one. I'm gonna talk about the special features on the second one just before I move. Oh Jesus! And here these stupid bots are again. I mean, they put the same freaking stuff. I'm gonna try to close out of some of them, guys. Okay. Maybe if I can. It's no use reporting them because they come right back. I'm just gonna try to remove them. I'll have a few live streams where they're not on there, and then yeah, date bots exactly. I hope I didn't close any any of y'all stuff out. Um, John, you say, yeah, X-ray, those scores rule. Um, yeah, John, oh shit, date box, good lord. Yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm that popular of a live streamer, so I don't know why they target my shit. Um, but I think they bug everybody pretty much. We had about we had about 13 people in here at one time, and there've been 70 views on it. I don't know. I don't know if they pick up on algorithms or what they do. TJ, you say, hey, the best streams get the X-rays and bonds. LOL. John, you say, Heather Langenkamp seems pretty normal now. She doesn't seem as Hollywoody and arrogant as a lot of actors, but it may be because she's more behind the scenes now. I've always thought that Heather Langenkamp seemed on an even keel, pretty much. She might just be one of those 1 in 1,000 people that doesn't get all wrapped up in that Hollywood insanity. Um, Darren, you say, unpopular opinion coming up. I used to love Dream Warriors, but it didn't really hold up for me when I saw it a year or so ago. I like it, but it's not as good as I thought. Well, Darren, I think it's good that you brought that up. I'm going to hold my thoughts on it till we actually get to it. I'm going to talk about these special features, and then, like I said, hold that thought. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. So, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, it has 4 featurettes. Freddy on 8th Street, Heroes and Villains, The Male Witch, and Psychosexual Circus, and a theatrical trailer. Now, moving on to part 3, The Dream Warriors. As Darren said, he used to love Dream Warriors, but it didn't really hold up when he saw it a year or so ago. I like it, but it's not as good as I thought. Very good point to make, because I have went back and forth with this movie several times over the years. And whenever I first watched it, I loved it. I was like, this is fantastic. Jennifer Rubin's in it as one of the teens who's suffering from the nightmare, so she gets thrown into a psych ward, along with is it Patricia Arquette, the Dokken music in it. This movie seems to have everything going for it. But somewhere along the way, I discovered all the weak spots in this movie. And I could be wrong, but I think that may be what Darren's talking about. It just, on closer inspection, it just doesn't seem like that well made of a film. And does have several weak spots in it. But it's great that Heather Langenkamp returns. But here's another weakness to this movie. I don't think they give Heather Langenkamp enough to do. It's like she enters into the movie, and she says a few smart things, and then before you know it, the character's gone. So it's like, and maybe that was their plan all along, but it's like, why bring Heather Langenkamp's character of Nancy back just to throw her in a handful of scenes and then poof, she's gone. I just wasn't too fond of those certain weak spots in the film, and they weren't like little bins and cardboard. They were like transparent, almost holes in the film itself. So I definitely get what Darren is saying, and my opinion may be an unpopular opinion as well. because although I don't hate it, it doesn't hold a upper spot in the series for me like it once did when I first saw it. Let's see. John, you say, I like Jamie Lee, but she's political as hell on social media, LOL. Really? Um, I guess I don't read what she puts or see what she puts as far as political type stuff. Um, John, you say, yeah, Darren, Dream Wars is okay, but I don't love it. Darren, you say, Heather Langenkamp also made her own documentary, which wasn't very good in my opinion. Yes, she did. She did. John, you say, I just don't get that feeling to rewatch the Nightmare movies much. Only one mostly. I get that. Texas, you say, I bet it's not Darren. It's weird to think of her doing one. John, you say, I take it back. Freddy versus Jason's the one I dislike the most. That movie is rough. I agree, John. I agree. Darren, you say, it seemed a lot like MTV to me. Gotcha. John, you say, yeah, it was. I just hated the characters in it, and it was as much a Jason movie as I Am Betty White. I worked at the theater when it came out. That butt rock music is in it. X-Ray, you say, in retrospect, the skeleton fight at the junkyard was kind of stupid, LOL. Also, the actual Dream Warriors premise is kind of wasted. Dreamscape did it better. Dream Warriors should have been like a straight up gory superhero movie. Interesting. I like all these different viewpoints. I really do, because it's making me think back to how I felt recently when I rewatched some of these. And I felt pretty much the same way you guys did about part 3. So, a little bit plot wise about A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. So, psych ward teens haunted by you know who get help from a dream researcher played by Heather Langenkamp, who should be familiar to fans. She battled Freddy in the first Elm Street Shocker. Give them hell, Dream Warriors. And they try, but unfortunately fail. Pretty much. Pretty much all of them fail. So this has 7 featurettes. Burnout, Fan Mail, The House That Freddy Built, Onward Christian Soldiers, Snakes and Ladders, That's Showbiz, and Trading Eights. Doc and Dream Warriors music video, and a theatrical trailer. And that is Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and 3. Actually, you said like each person had a power, but the characters got wasted within 2 to 3 minutes of using them. Darren, you said, I thought I was going to be the odd one out on part 3. Nope, actually not, Darren. John, you say, yeah, X-Ray, I agree. It was a silly concept that was wasted. Texas, you say, Betty White as Freddy in a cameo would have been dope as hell. Brandon, you say, England and Saxon should have had a scene together. Yeah, that would have been good too. TJ, you say, 3 is the first one I saw in the theater, so I have a soft spot. The practical effects were top notch. Yeah, the skeleton fight was more of a homage to the effects of Ray Harryhausen, so I let that slide. X-Ray, you say, also, if you think about it, once they beat Freddy, wouldn't have the surviving characters woken up in a room with their dead pals? The main doctor would have been put away in prison. Yep, there's that logic thing again. Logic rears its ugly head quite often, and that's why I think those of us that have seen a lot of horror movies reach a point where it's hard for us to suspend disbelief anymore. So moving on from the first three, I'm moving to my not very good box set of Blu-ray um, Nightmare on Elm Street movies, which means that we're only going to have this case. We're not going to have, we're not going to have separate cases. And this does have um, parts 1, 2, and 3. But there's really no reason for me to show you these discs as I talk about each one of these because they all basically look the same. But we're going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 4 next. But guys, I think hopefully one of my batteries is charged up enough that maybe it'll stay on so that you guys can enjoy my background more. I know it's not all about the background, but guys, I'll be right back. Gotta get something else to drink. So sorry, guys. Not only had to get something else to drink, but I had to run to the restroom. Um, but I know you can't really see the green on there because of my green screen. But this is a sour watermelon ghost energy drink, which they are very good. Especially if you like the Warhead candy. Let's see. See what I missed when I stepped away. Tasty, she says Saxon should have been drinking and speaking Italian before he got killed. John, you say, I'm not sure where you could even take a new Nightmare on Elm Street film. Sadly, about the only thing you could do is another remake. Yeah, unfortunately. I think they've been to every corner that they could be in. Okay, let's see. Ah, there, yeah. If I could just keep the key light on, this background I think would look good all the time. Let's see. John, you say unless you do a direct sequel to one and ignore the rest, lol, lol, that's popular these days. It certainly is. X-Ray, you say Nightmare 4 and 5 are the only ones I watched in theaters in their initial runs. TJ, you say no new remake, please, lol. Johnny, you say agreed, TJ, I say leave it dead. Darren, you say the Dream Master, I think, is the only one really underrated entry in the series. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second, Darren, so I'm glad that you brought that up. John, you say, I guess you could do a series about young Freddy and missing kids and stuff, but that would be very dark. Darren, you say, X-Ray, I would love to have seen part 4 in the theater. Me too. I didn't get to see it in the theater either. Oh, Curly Jaws. Hey, buddy. You say the best Elm Street film is the remake from 2010 following Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 6, Freddy's Dead. The worst is New Nightmares trash. Uh, and you say the original is overrated. Again, oh Curly Jaws, I fully expected you to say that. I did. TJ, you say 4 is cool. I'm fine with Arquette not being Kristen. I don't think Tuesday Night was horrible in it like some people make her out to be. No, I don't think Tuesday Night was horrible in it either. Oh, Curly Jaws, you say can't hear. You really can't hear, oh Curly Jaws? You can't hear me talking, or you just like, no, 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 I can't hear. Middle Lake, you say hydration is always desirable and a ghost drink is appropriate for this live stream. Yeah, it sure is. Texas, you say that can is a ghost. Yeah, it is because of our green screen. TJ, you say spooky energy drink, lol. Literal transparent ghost, lol. Oh, Curly Jaws, you say, wait, never mind, high as fuck. Okay, got you. I thought maybe nobody else was saying it, but I thought maybe, my microphone was on the fritz again. Yeah, you can literally see that image that's actually behind me in this can because this can is green. That's so awesome. Okay. Somebody think I was high the way I'm going on about that. Um, Texas, you say Freddy versus Chucky versus Old Curly Jaws. X-Ray, you say only crossover I want to see with Old Curly Jaws is Old Curly versus Leprechaun. Old Curly Jaws, you say Nightmare on Elm Street show is cool. Talking about Freddy's Nightmares. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that tonight, but I'd almost like to do a separate live stream on just that series. Brandon, you say Freddy going after the parents and kids would be interesting. Also, use the power dynamic of that Gacy and Fish used on young victims. The power dynamic go dark and creepy. Yeah, that would be something new and inventive and all that. Oh, Curly Jaws, you say that would be a cool live stream. Definitely would check that out, especially because the show is underrated. I do agree with you on that, oh Curly Jaws. We don't agree on a whole lot, but I agree with you on that. So getting back to A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. This one I have always, always been so fond of. Because I can't really pinpoint one exact thing. I think that the style of it, the introduction of the Alice character, and how Alice evolves over the course of the film. I always loved films where a character starts out kind of meek and in the back and really quiet, and you could never expect them to defeat a school bully, nevertheless to beat Freddy. And in this, the father is an alcoholic. So this kind of harkens back to the original Nightmare on Elm Street, where you had an alcoholic mother. And the sex bots or the dating bots or whatever, they're back. Hold on, guys, just 1 second. I'm eventually going to quit trying to get rid of them because either that or I'm going to have somebody be a moderator in here to, like, take care of some of these. I am going to put the user in timeout for a little bit, and maybe they can't, maybe they won't be able to put something in there for a little while. Anyways, so, you know, it kind of is a bookend, in my opinion, to the original film. It's almost as if these first 4 films could have been one chapter. You know what I mean? In a one big book about Freddy. Now, it's probably going to be a little bit unpopular when I talk about part 5, because I'm not a person that hates part 5. A lot of people don't like part 5. They think part 5 sucks. But we'll get to that. But A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 has the introduction of the Alice character. And I get that probably a lot of people are still on Team Kristen, or Kirsten, or how, I think it's Kristen, at this point. Even if it's not played by Patricia Arquette, the character is now played by Tuesday Knight, who, like was said before, I think she does a very adequate job in the film. But the person that I am rooting for throughout the entire film, even before, sorry guys, excuse me, I've been doing that all day long. I keep hoping that it means I'm getting well or I'm on the mend, because I'm getting all this junk out of me. But anyway, oh goodness. But even before Kristen exits, you know, the movie and her life within the movie fairly early on, I always rooted for Alice, because you wanted Alice to overcome things. You wanted her to overcome how her life was with her alcoholic father, and a little bit of a verbally abusive father. I don't think he ever hits, or it acts like he's going to hit his children, but he is very, very verbally abusive to Alice. That, you know, pretty much calling her a daydreamer and just sitting around staring off into space. And he expects her to perform wifely duties, and she's his child. And I don't mean anything like sex or anything, but he expects her to have meals for him when he comes home from work and all of that. Johnny say, we need Chat Freddy to get them out of here. Sex bots, bitch. Exactly. Well, I think I'm going to, you know, at some point in time, put a couple of you maybe as moderators, a couple of you guys that are in here most every chat, to kind of help me take care of these bots. X-Ray, you say part 5 is some really cool imagery. I agree with that, X-Ray. TJ, you say, I think the kids in Dream Master are a bit more developed as characters in part 3. The actors were good, but they had one-note character traits. Exactly. Brandy say Kincaid dying pissed me off. Kincaid dying pretty much pissed me off too, and Joey dying pretty much pissed me off too, because I could see those two characters, Kincaid and Joey, carrying off, carrying on where Kristen left off. But here's one other thing I was thinking about. Perhaps they killed Kincaid and Joey off because they knew that they were going to have the introduction of another strong character in Alice. That slowly over time, Alice was going to become the central character. And perhaps they didn't want these other characters from part three to take away from Alice. And maybe they were intending Alice to be in part five, or the character of Alice to be in part five. Um, the world may never know about that. But I do get that. X-Ray say everyone in the theater marked out when Super Freddy showed up in part five. I don't think I marked out, but I did mark out for this one. And again, I can't really pinpoint just one thing that makes me love this movie so much other than the Alice character. Every time one of her friends dies, she gets another strength until eventually when she says fucking A, and she's really transformed. She's turned into this meek little girl almost to a total badass. And so at that point, I'm on Team Alice all the way. I was on the train. I was on the train when I first saw Alice, but when she looks at the camera and says "fucking A," I'm like, hell yeah, Alice! I am with you now. We're gonna kick Freddy's ass. So I think that is really why I'm so fond of part four. Um, and why, and the other part of that is there are a lot of strong characters, I feel like, in part four. And that the storyline flows really, really well, but the characters are the main thing. The characters in this one are the ones that really, it really made me fall in love with the series again. Not that I fell completely out of love with it, but it had renewed. It's like renewing your marriage vows. It renewed my love of the Nightmare on Elm Street series with part four. And I know you guys probably think, oh Lord, she's getting sappy now. Uh, TJ, you say it bugged me. Joey and Kincaid really didn't believe her that Freddy was back. Like, did they forget what happened in part three? LOL. Yeah, that did kind of bother me as well. X-Ray, you say, for some reason, 80s horror films always made characters from preceding movies into retards for the sequels, i.e., Fright Night Part 2. TJ, you say more great special effects from the ex Mr. Linnea Quigley, Steve Johnson. Exactly. Steve Johnson did excellent work on this one. X-Ray, you say Rainbow Raft's theme song. LOL. Right. Darren, you say check out Ken Sago's in the 1988 slasher Death by Dialogue. I've always liked it. It's cheesy as hell. I need to check that one out. Brandon, you say the dog Jason pissing fire. Yeah, I like that dog. X-Ray, you say, damn, Alice is the only person who went up against Freddy and survived the entire series. Yeah, she pretty much was, wasn't she? So, I was trying to see if I'm thinking that they're were some special features on these others, but I'm not seeing anything on the back. Of course, the print is really small on the back. So, y'all can feel free to keep talking about part four. Um, but again, I didn't want to keep people in here too late in this live stream. So, I don't want to feel like I'm going through them too fast, but I also don't want to feel like I'm just stuck on one, just going on and on. And like I did feel like I was gushing with part four a little bit, but it does. It really is one of my favorites in the series. So we're going to move along to one that a lot of people dislike, which is A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Alice gets pregnant by her boyfriend in part four. Uh, Dan, I think his name is, and Dan gets dispatched pretty early in part five. Spoiler. Sorry about that. Didn't warn you in advance. But so he's dispatched quite early, but they still, of course, Alice is carrying a critical key point in her womb, or a critical plot point to this movie. And that is a child. And if anybody has done any research into children in the womb, babies in the womb, you know that they spend much of their time dreaming. So, aha! Here's another way for Freddy to kill more young people off, is to invade the dream space of Alice and Dan's infant child. So here's another one where people might think, oh, geez Louise, they're just trying to bend logic again to make Freddy be able to easily access more young people and kill more young people. But, that's kind of what you got to do to keep a series going. You got to come up with new, maybe not improved, but new ideas. Otherwise, the storyline's going to get stale. So I respect A Nightmare on Elm Street 5. I don't find that part 5 is any weaker than some of the other films. It's not my favorite, but I don't dislike it the same way that a lot of other people do. And a lot of people don't like the kid, who, when he's got part of Freddy in him and he's doing his thing, and then he gets to the point where he's trying to fool Freddy into thinking he wants to join him and all of that. I guess people think that's kind of hokey, but I also think there were some inventive things. And you guys might disagree with me on this, but the whole thing about well, actually, I think this was in part 4. But that whole thing where they kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. They kept going to the diner, and it just kept repeating over and over again. And they're like, "Aha, we're in a dream." So, although part 5 didn't carry that over, it did carry over some of that. A little bit of hokiness in this one as well. And perhaps that's why people didn't care for it. But I've heard a lot of people complain about, as X-Ray said, the creepy looking kid. Let's see. TJ, you say exactly, X-Ray. Then they ignored she existed and Freddy's dead. LOL. Yeah, they pretty much did. X-Ray, you say Freddy is sort of like the sharks in Jaws. You can avoid Krueger if you can just move out of the state. But then, of course, they'll follow you to Jamaica or whatever too. Remember Jaws 4? X-Ray, you say, I have nostalgia for part 5 because I saw it in theaters. I also remember it being very striking visually. The theater I watched it in is long gone. I think sometimes that makes us nostalgic for certain things too. Brandon, you said part 5 needs a rewatch since Roe versus Wade got overturned. Yeah. That is an interesting take on that. X-Ray, you say that creepy looking kid was in a lot of 90s TV shows, was perfectly cast. I agree, X-Ray. I agree. And wasn't he on like an episode of Full House? I was thinking he was. Whoops. I have to knock that off. And Darren, you said part 5 is entertaining and has some great moments. It's not great, but I can sit through it. Exactly. It's not perfect, but you can sit through it. Yeah, I totally get that. Brandon, you say, remember the Dead Pit interview with Lisa Wilcox where they make fun of how the kid looks grown up? I think I listened to that interview, but it's been a while, Brandon, so I'd probably have to refresh my memory on that. X-Ray, you say, people in the audience I watched it with thought something happened with the film when that one scene kept repeating LOL. Yeah, I think a lot of people did. They were like, what in the hell? What's going on here? TJ, you say, yeah, I don't hate 5, although, again, things are odd. Like, where did these new friends come from? Were they Dan's buds? And did they not know all those kids died like a year before, huh? Yeah, it's like they have to tighten things up so much. It's like, nobody will notice that we threw a few new characters in, etc. Darren, you say, I've read that Lisa Wilcox and Tuesday Night hate each other. I had heard that they weren't exactly buddy too. But I think it was like, in my case, it was like hearsay. I don't think that I read any interviews specifically with them where they said they disliked one or the other. So, again, I'm going to move right along to Freddy's Dead. But again, you guys feel free to comment on any of the others too that we've talked about, because, like I said, I'm glancing at the chat as I go through. So, Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare. A lot of people don't like this one, and I've seen that you guys put in the chat that some of you thought it sucked, which I totally get. But again, I think the reason this one holds a special place in my heart is because it was basically the first 3D film I ever saw in the theater. And I guess either I was really dumb or I wasn't paying enough attention, but I thought the whole movie was going to be 3D. And you can bet your booties I was disappointed as hell when I found out it wasn't till the last few minutes that were actually in 3D. I honestly felt cheated. But maybe that's my own fault because maybe I didn't pay enough attention to the advertising for it. But I was like excited. I got these special 3D Freddy red and blue glasses. Like, oh, this is awesome. I'm finally going to get to see a 3D movie and a horror movie at that in the theaters, because I missed out on Jaws 3D. I missed out on Friday the 13th 3D. All of that. Amityville 3D. And so I was just super, super excited. And then to find out that only the last 10 or so minutes is actually in 3D was a major bummer to me. But I don't hate the movie. I find things to like about this one. And it might be because I got to see it in the theater, and it was probably I think this was probably the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie I got to see in the theater as well. I don't really know why I didn't see some of the others in the theater. But for whatever reason, of course, that was in my video rental days, so a lot of them I rented. But this particular one, I went with my Aunt Sandy, who, as I've said before, was my movie watching buddy for a long time. And so we went to see it. And although enjoyable, I was disappointed the whole movie, again, was not in 3D. Um, and I think some people also didn't like this movie because it really messed with the others in the series. Because when the hell did Freddy having a daughter come into play? As far as I know, only in this film. And so, that might have been part of the reason why people dislike this one so much, is that they really went off the rails, and they didn't stick to the storyline really in any way, shape, or form with this one. It could have been a whole different movie. It could have been like Freddy decided he was gonna start a new franchise, and they could have not even called it a Nightmare on Elm Street. But X-Ray, you say, I think Freddy's Dead is objectively the worst in the franchise. Objectively, that is a good word, X-Ray, to use. And Darren, you said part 6, worst film out of the first 7 by a country mile. Brandon, you say, I like to get high or drunk and watch Freddy's Dead. I imagine a lot of people do. X-Ray, you say, the intro with the falling house is the most memorable part. X-Ray, you say, they jumped the shark with Freddy using the power glove and a giant Q-tip to kill people. Yeah, some of that stuff in retrospect, seems like overkill. TJ, you say, I remember the 3D being fine in the theater. It's the red and blue, so it's not as good as the polarized kind of. Exactly. So I'm not going to stay too long on Freddy's Dead. So I'm going to move on to New Nightmare, which I think John was one that said that this was one of his favorites. And it's mine too, because in a lot of ways, it almost brings the franchise full circle. Okay? And for the purposes of this live stream, it is going to bring it full circle, because I'm not going to talk about Freddy versus Jason. I'm not going to talk about that remake. So, for me, this is the end of the series. And I think probably it's the way that Wes Craven would have wanted the series to end. I mean, I didn't know Wes Craven personally, but just hearing him talk, I think he would have been satisfied with this as being the final one. I like all the way the things were set up in this. I liked, some people might have been a little bit irritated by Miko Hughes' performance as Heather Langenkamp's son in the movie. But I thought he did an excellent job. I hadn't really seen him in that big of a part since Pet Sematary, where he was very, very young, playing the very young Gage. And I thought he carried this part off really, really well. And I thought bringing back Heather Langenkamp, having Robert Englund play both himself and Freddy, having Heather Langenkamp play both herself and Nancy, having Wes Craven's real nightmares come into play for this movie, just like it did with the Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't think you could find a more perfect full circle ending to the franchise. Um, and you know, if there had to be more in the series, like I said earlier, if this had been a one-off and nobody knew anything about, there could have been a possibility of sequels, I would have been fine with the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and that's it. But because there were several in between, this was the topper. This was the icing on my cake. This is the cherry on my chocolate sundae. It had everything in it, and the pacing was great. The acting was great. The whole setup, the mixing of reality and dreams and nightmares, the surrealistic quality of a lot of it, the way that Wes Craven weaved what some of the things that were going on in real life into the fabric of this film. It's creepy, but it's also mesmerizing and makes for a fantastic film overall. Um, so I won't continue to gush over A New Nightmare, but um, again, if we had to have several different movies in this franchise, in my opinion, this was the ending for me. Everything came full circle. And uh, although I am really glad that real people did not die like they did in the movie, just like having Heather Langenkamp's husband in the movie die. I'm glad her real husband did not die. And, and nothing really catastrophic happened. But I also like that Wes Craven really he really did with this movie what he did back in 1984 with the original. And that's totally my opinion, and you guys can disagree with me on that, but I'm kind of going to stick to my guns on that. X-Ray, you say, I think most people forgot New Nightmare even existed. They probably did. TJ, you say that crazy part 6 Roseanne Barr cameo. Ugh. TJ, you say Heather looks so good in New Nightmare. She did. She did. If it's possible for somebody to get older and look more attractive, Heather Langenkamp nailed it. Darren, you say New Nightmare, probably my 4th fave of the series. 2, 1, 4, 7, and 3. That's my top 5 in that order. TJ, you say, I love the pre-screen meta stuff. It was really something new. Why are you calling me Nancy? John? Saxon, why are you calling me John? Yeah, exactly. It's very surreal, but a very appropriate closure to an overall fantastic franchise. So in this set, even though I said it's not a really good set, you do get a bonus disc that has all new Fear Himself, The Life and Crimes of Freddy Krueger on it. I'm sure I probably have watched it, but I don't remember a lot about it right now. I would have to go back and watch it to be able to give you guys a real in-depth analysis of it. X-Ray, you say, I remember when the Miss Me teaser for New Nightmare popped up during a movie I was watching. People groaned. I distinctly remember, oh, come on, I think maybe the ship sailed by then. Yeah, I have heard, not necessarily with that film, but with other films, you can just hear a big collective sigh from the audience with some of the films that come out. Somebody actually said, "Oh, come on." Yeah. Um, but I still feel like there's a lot to appreciate about New Nightmare. And again, I'm not going to go on and gush about this film, but again, one last time, I'm going to say I think it's the perfect full circle closure for the franchise. Darren, you said Friday the 13th ends with part 8, so I totally get this was where they should have stopped as well. Right. Texas, you say, I think that's the only series beside Lord of the Rings I saw all of them in the theater. Wow. I wish I could say that I saw all of them in the theater. TJ, you say, meanwhile, they keep making scream double explanation point, LL and Sally. And poor Wes Craven, bless his heart, he's not around to say boo about it, is he? Um, so I have finished my discussion of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. You guys can feel free to add a few more things. I can stay on here a few more minutes. While you're doing that, I am, for the benefit of those of you that maybe were not in here earlier when I was talking about the new things I'm going to be offering on the Morbid Beauty Boutique, my Etsy shop. Um, some people were Dirk in particular, and I'm sad that Dirk's not in here now, but he may watch this at a later time, and so he'll get to see me talk about this twice. Um, but he had talked about he would like to get some Jallo shirts. And he was actually asking Steve and others of us on the Eurocult show, um, the last one we did, where you could get Jallo shirts. He may have even asked me in my live stream. I just can't recall now. So I got an idea in my head. I'm very shortly going to be getting a heat transfer press, which will allow me to transfer images onto t-shirts. And it's supposed to be a lot easier than using an iron, which I was never really any good at anyway. This, you basically just press the image down that's on the transfer onto the shirt, and voila, you got a shirt with an image on it. Now, we'll actually see when I get mine if it's that easy. But I came up with a starter image because Dirk was talking about Tenebrae being one of his favorites. So, and for those of you that saw this earlier, I do apologize, and feel free to tune me out or turn me off or whatever you want to do while I talk about this again. But this is the design, and I'm sorry you can't see. If I tilt it a little bit, you can see the Tenebrae in yellow letters a little bit more clearly. And then you see the image that was the girl who was pulling the shirt over her head, and the killer slashes through it, and you see her face through the hole. Now, this was the second image I did. The first one I printed out actually didn't look that great in retrospective. But Steve said, why don't you, because the original image still had the white from the shirt around it. He said, why don't you get rid of all that white around it and make it look like her face is coming through the actual t-shirt that you're going to put on. I'm like, wow, that is cool. That's a cool idea. So that's why I think, again, it's good to bounce your ideas off other people before you finalize a design or, whatever you're working on. So, and Darren said earlier this would look good on a white shirt. And Dirk mentioned that he wouldn't mind having a Tenebrae design on a white t-shirt. So, soon, when I get my heat transfer press and the transfer paper, and I'm getting little rulers to help me put the image on the shirt in just the correct spot. It's supposed to help me, um, because it's got like adult size, kid size, whatever rulers, and probably primarily I'll be doing the adult size shirts. But anyway, so what I did was I removed the white around this that looked like the shirt, and then I highlighted. I put like uh, black around it and kind of made it look jagged, as you can see there, so it looks almost like she is coming through the shirt that you've got on. So yes, I would say it's going to look good on white shirts, or maybe a yellow shirt or something like that. It may even look pretty good on a red shirt, which is what I laid this on the back of a red shirt just to get some kind of idea of what it would look like. So I'm planning on those maybe being $10 to $12 to start out. And there went my light again. It stayed on for quite a while. But I also hope to have some other designs in the works at some point as well. So the other thing, I've gotten some tumblers and some ceramic mugs. And granted, if you buy a tumbler or you buy a mug, these are prototypes. Keep in mind, all I've done is printed the image out on paper and stuck it on with Scotch tape. But if you order one, that's not what you're going to get. I'm actually going to use the water slide decal paper, and then the image will be put on either the tumbler or the mug. And these also will be made to order, because the last thing I want is to make these things and then nobody buy them, and I have like 10,000. Well, I'm over estimating, but I don't want to have a bunch of T-shirts and mugs and tumblers sitting around if they're not actually going to get sold. So when you order one, I will start making it, whether it's a T-shirt or a tumbler or a ceramic mug. Yeah, Darren, actually a yellow Jell-O tumbler is a great idea. I may look into seeing if I can get some yellow tumblers. I thought I'd start out with these black ones and see what it looked like with an image on it. But yeah, oh sorry. Let me look into seeing if I can obtain some yellow tumblers. Actually, you say polyamor scream transcend the scream BLM scream. Darren, you say all these franchises should have stopped years ago. Only one I'm kind of intrigued about be Friday 13th to see how they can mess it up. Exactly. Thank you, Texas. I'm glad that you like that. So those things are all on the horizon. I also, hopefully, y'all got to see the animation behind me before my light went out and it got all fuzzy again. But this is referred to as a spooky hut. I have found a site that has, oh my gosh, it would take me days to go through all the stuff that is on there. There is tons of stuff. Let me actually let y'all know what the site is. The site is actually Envato Elements. That's ENVATO Elements. And if you look that up on Google, I bet you can get to the site. But that's where I found all of this stuff. And it's a really cool site. You can get stuff for your websites. You can get stuff for your live streams. They have royalty-free music and sound effects, glitch transitions, and I don't know. There's just tons of stuff. And it's going to take me forever to get through all the stuff. But I picked out a few things that I wanted to start off with and start using. So I hope you guys enjoyed the animation and that it wasn't too distracting behind me because it's set to loop because it is only like a short video. So if you were noticing or focusing on it very much, you'll notice that it loops. It just looped now. It starts out quite a ways back from the actual cabin or hut or whatever you want to call it, and then slowly moves closer to it. And then you have trees blowing in the wind, you have birds flying around, and all that good stuff. So I guess I'll stay on here for about 5 more minutes until 10:30, and then I'm going to get off here and rest up for tomorrow evening. Because we will be having, after the return of Steve, after the return of the B Plan, Captain B Plan, I'm going to be having the Blood Hook watch along at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts, barring anything going funky with my OBS. So I do have a link to the YouTube version of it if you want to use that. Darren's told me he has the Blu-ray of it. I'm too lazy to hook up all my stuff for my Blu-ray, so I'm just going to watch it through the link on YouTube, which surely we can all get synced up pretty well. Yeah, double feature picture show tomorrow, TJ. Exactly. Darren, you say you will be there all being well. Okay, well, I certainly hope things are well with everybody. And the following Saturday, barring anything health-wise or otherwise going on with me, I am also planning on having a watch-along for Rocktober Blood. There is also a link for it on YouTube. And Shudder, if you have Shudder, Rocktober Blood is currently on Shudder. So, you know, if you have Shudder, you can certainly watch it through there. Oh, goodness, sorry, guys. But if anybody has anything else they want to bring up, comment on, like I always say, tell me to get the hell off here. You got 3 minutes left to do that before I'm going to skedaddle on out of here. The Almost Famous watch along. Well, you know, Texas, if there's enough of a want for that, I'd be happy to do that at some point because, like I said, it's not like I'm streaming the movie, so I don't think I'm going to run into any copyright problems if everybody is watching the movie on their own and I'm just commenting on it. For all of you Almost Famous fans, if that's something that you would be interested in me doing, I can do that. I would certainly be, I'm very flexible that way. You know, it doesn't all have to be horror films. We could certainly do other films if you guys are of a mind to have me do that. I would actually love doing that. Not sure what that is on my Scotch tape here. It's like food or something. No telling. Darren, you said hopefully get some sleep. It's hotter than hell here. You know, Darren, I hated that you guys are having such hot weather, but we've still been in the 80s, but the humidity has significantly dropped. So it was so nice today. And Steve and I both took a vacation day, and so you know, we spent some time inside, but we got out a little bit today and did a little shopping, did our grocery shopping. Steve took me to Waffle House for breakfast, and then I took us to Arby's and we got something, to go and brought it home. But tomorrow I'm planning at some points of the day of taking a little walk at the park. And I asked Steve if he wanted to go with me, and he said, no. so, so I'm sorry, Darren. It's still hot in the UK, though. TJ, you say never seen Almost Famous? Oh, wow. Maybe we definitely do need to do a watch along then. Uh, give people a chance to watch it. So I'm assuming you don't own it then, TJ? Texas, you thought I didn't like regular movies? No, man, I like regular movies. Um, but when you mentioned you brought the soundtrack, I was like, wow. Oh, yeah. Some people are, confused. They think I'm just whole hog into horror movies and that I don't watch anything else. You haven't been the only one to say that. Other people have said that as well. You do not, TJ. Okay, well, if we do that, TJ, I'll have to look around and see if I can find a outlet for you to be able to watch that. I mean, I don't know if it would be on YouTube or not. I'd have to do a little research into that because I would hate for you to buy it just for for that reason. And I don't know if you download movies or not. Not everybody does that. Some people do though. But guys, it has been fun. I've been on here almost 2.5 hours. I thank you guys for stopping by, and there's a big old fly on my computer monitor. I would like to thank you guys again for stopping by and hanging out with me for a little bit. Uh, I had a really good time discussing the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I hope you guys did too. And look forward to those new designs and new items that I'm going to shortly be putting up on the Etsy shop, the Morbid Beauty Boutique. And watch for the return of the B plan. And after that, the Blood Hook watch along. So, good night, Darren. And I'll probably see you tomorrow at some point. Happy weekend to you too, TJ. And good night, Texas. Good night, everybody. I'm going to skedaddle on out of here. You're welcome, Texas. And I will see everybody on the flip side.